This is the story of a woman who lost her family, her husband, and her hair. She hit rock bottom, but she didn't stay there. She clawed her way up and out and built an empire in the process. Today's story is called The Woman Who Lost Everything.
Season 1 of The Story features 12 women trailblazers who changed the world. The story is brought to you exclusively by Salesforce, who strives to create workplaces where everyone feels empowered to bring their full, authentic selves to work. And now, onto the story.
Her scalp was burning. She ran her hand through her hair, wincing in pain. Slowly, she glanced down at her palm. It was covered in hair. Sarah was only 20 years old, and her hair was falling out in clumps every day. She blinked back tears and stared at her balding reflection in the mirror. She tried to contain her emotions, but finally she broke down crying. Thankfully, her daughter was in another room and couldn't hear her cries. Sarah wiped her tears away and wondered why everything was such a struggle. It had been a horrible month. Her husband had died. She couldn't find work. Now, she and her child were going hungry. The pain was bad, but it was nothing compared to what she had faced as a child. At 7 years old, both of her parents had died, and she was on her own in a world that couldn't care less. On top of all of it, her head hurt, and it seemed like she was losing hair every single day. The hair problems added insult to all of her injuries. Back in those days, the only shampoo for women caused dandruff, baldness, and sometimes skin disorders. An inconsistent diet and infrequent opportunities to bathe only made these issues worse. Sarah took another deep breath. She had no money or nearby family to offer support. It was overwhelming, but her daughter was counting on her. With her head bowed, she prayed for help. With her thoughts focused on her daughter, she gained the strength to look outward. She looked out at the city around her and realized she wasn't alone. In the city she lived in, she noticed a common thread amongst the women. Their hair was in shambles too. Their scalps hurt too. They were miserable. Instantly, she knew what to do. She was going to find a way to solve her own problem. Maybe in doing so, she could solve the problems of those around her. She wasn't sure where to start, but she got to work anyways. Her extended family in St. Louis were all barbers. They were in the business. Maybe she could start there. After scraping together a few dollars, she took off on a cross-country trip. She packed up a handful of belongings and her daughter, and soon she was in St. Louis. When they arrived, she found a bustling town. She met up with her family there. After asking around, she had soon landed a job where she was earning just $1 a day doing laundry. Instead of crying at night, now she was breathing sighs of relief. It wasn't much money, but they were able to get by. Now she could provide for herself and her daughter. They would be okay. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid the bills. Soon, days turned into months, and months turned into years. Eventually, Sarah turned 35, but she was still doing laundry. At work one day, she met a woman who was selling hair care products. They struck up a conversation, and the woman offered to hire her. Sarah jumped at the chance. Soon, she learned the job inside and out. It wasn't easy. The job was door-to-door sales and 100% commission. It was one painful conversation after another. Most doors got slammed in her face. Slowly, Sarah began to recognize a pattern. For every 100 doors she knocked on, 10 people would listen to her pitch. And of those 10, usually one would buy. The work of getting to that one person who would buy was tough. But like clockwork, the numbers added up. She reveled in the predictability of the pursuit. If she put in the work, around one person in 100 was guaranteed to buy. On those rare days when she heard a yes amidst the sea of no's, her heart would leap. Life sure wasn't perfect, but it wasn't dark as it used to be. She was still making around $1 per day. But now she was learning skills. She knew how to sell. Next, in her spare time, she began to brainstorm ideas for her own products. How could she invent something even better than what she was selling? She kept working and trying to figure out how to make a better shampoo. Not long after, she met a man. Soon, they were married, and she had another daughter. With a growing family and more financial resources, they moved to Denver, Colorado. It's been said that no one can become a prophet in their hometown. Now that Sarah was in a new town, she reinvented herself. She marketed herself to the community as an independent hairdresser and retail of cosmetic creams. At their home, she developed her own line of hair care products. They weren't perfect, but they were far better than anything on the market. Her new husband helped. He had a knack for advertising and promotion. and soon the two of them had their own line of hair care products rolling. After that, she hit the streets and sold. Now it was no longer selling just a product. She was selling something she had put her heart and soul into. It was something that was personally helping her and everyone who bought it. During the sales process, she was becoming a teacher. While she sold, she taught the other women in the community how to groom and style their own hair. She taught them what to avoid. She saved many of them from the harsh chemicals that had damaged her hair and scalp. As the business grew, so did Sarah's daughter. At age 21, her daughter began running the mail order division of their business. Then she started to manage all of their Denver operations. While she did this, Sarah and her husband were now freed up. They could travel around the southeastern United States and find places to expand the business. A few years later, the family relocated to Pittsburgh. There, they opened a beauty parlor and a salon, then a college to train new team members. The couple also created a new salon in Indianapolis and another in New York City. They began building and acquiring houses, factories, labs, and schools to train a large group of salespeople. Sarah wasn't just selling hair care products now, she was leading a movement. By this time, her company employed over 20,000 women. This was all happening back in the early 1900s, and maybe you can't figure out who Sarah was. That's because back in those days, when a woman became so wildly successful, people often gave them a new name. They would call them Madame. Sarah Breedlove took the name Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker came from nothing and became one of the most successful entrepreneurs in history. Just a fraction of the trials she faced would crush most people, but not her. She faced the dark night of the soul and triumphed. She learned how to love and care for a single person, her daughter. In doing so, she was forced to learn to love and appropriately value herself. By valuing herself, she created a product to stop all the ways in which she was hurting. Now, she was in a position to reduce the suffering of everyone else who faced the similar problem. She had gone through the proving fire of circumstance and mastered fate. Her businesses would continue to thrive 62 years after her death and sold to Sephora in 2016. Madam C.J. Walker blazed a trail and left a path for others to follow. Along the way, when things got tough, she would repeat one of her favorite sayings to anyone who would listen. That saying is simple, powerful, and it still rings true today. Don't sit down and wait for opportunities to come. Get up and make them. That's her story. What's yours going to be?
Thank you for listening to The Story. As a thank you, we have an exclusive giveaway for listeners of The Story, a chance to win one of 10 free tickets to Dreamforce, courtesy of our presenting sponsor, Salesforce. Salesforce is committed to supporting trailblazers like you. If you don't know Dreamforce, you are in for a treat. Dreamforce brings together thought leaders, industry pioneers, and customers for 4 high-energy days of learning, inspiration, equality, fun, and incredible concerts. You can head to thestorypodcast.com and enter to win today. That is thestorypodcast.com. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor, Salesforce, for helping promote equal opportunity and sharing these stories of trailblazers.
If you like this episode of The Story, please help spread these stories by telling one friend. Also, you can hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you're listening. The Story is created by our team here at The Mission. The Mission is your #1 source for accelerated learning. To get more stories and podcasts like this and our world-class newsletter, subscribe at themission.co. That's themission.co.